personally have never seen or witnessed anything. I'm not out there enough, really, to be honest with you, but I mean, it's eerie out there because there's nothing out there. I mean, you know, everywhere around here nowadays is starting to be developed and houses are getting built everywhere, but for some reason, just this complete, like, 5-6 mile stretch of road just is nothing. It's just completely desolate. It's just one road that cuts through a bunch of ridges and there's nothing. You got some houses at the very beginning and some at the very end, and that's it.
What's up, you guys? Chet-Guthrie, the Dream Poet here, coming to you all with another spooky episode here in my Haunt Season series. And today, guys, we are out pretty much in the middle of nowhere. Or I should say, right in front of me, right here, this is County Road 956. And if you go just up a little bit of ways here, you will come across a 4-mile stretch of road called the Red Hills area. Now, people have been living in this area as far back as time itself, dating all the way back to the ancestors of the Cherokee Nation. And actually, some of these graves are Cherokee, and some of them are white settlers. And during this time, in this age, all of this land was uninhabited. It was a wild, vast grassland, wild lands. Animals roamed the plains. And in the night, both colonists and Cherokee would speak of spirits. Now, these so-called spirits would be ghost stories initiated from the Cherokee to the colonists and the fur traders of this area. And many of them were spiritual tales of a bygone era. And some left these colonists, these fur traders, other Cherokee afraid of the dark. Some of these stories would be of wicked beasts, monsters that roam the night. And for one family who have lived in this area for 6 generations, these stories might not just be stories. You see, the Moats family have lived in this area since they first immigrated to this country over 200 years ago. Over 6 generations of family members of Moats live in this area. And in this time, they have experienced some very strange things that have come out of the Red Hills. As Garrett Moats once recalled in a story once told by one of his family members, at the very beginning of the Red Hills area, there was a woman named Liza Swafford. Now, a few hundred years ago, many people considered Liza Swafford to be rather, well, crazy. You see, Liza Swafford would warn people of going into the Red Hills area. She would often scream at them. She would tell people, don't go in the Red Hills area. There is something there. There is something strange. Something that is evil.
He said there was a lady named Liza Swafford that lived at the very beginning of the Red Hills, and nobody knew if she was crazy or what her deal was, but anybody that would try to go into the Red Hills, she would actually run out of her house and into the road and like try to convince them to not drop through the ridge, to just go around. And every time somebody, would ask her why, she just said, there's something in these woods and you don't need to be here. And she would try to convince people to go around. Granted, most people just thought she was crazy and drove, right past her, or, just continued doing their thing. But she was convinced that there was something out there as well. And she tried to, convince everybody that they needed to stay out of the woods and not even remotely drive through that area.
Now, this brings me back to the stories the Cherokee told of this area, of what went bump in the night. You see, to this day, people still jokingly talk about this particular spirit. But then, there are others here in the Appalachian areas of the mountains that swear up and down that a creature like this exists. And that creature is called a wampus cat. The best way to describe what a wampus cat is it is a six-legged cougar. And it has a howl that is loud, deadly. And to some who have heard the great yelp of a wampus cat, it usually signifies that they will die in about a week. Or at least that's what old colonists, old fur traders, and the Cherokee and Native Americans spoke of in this area. Now, some people believe how the wampus cat was created. The Cherokee said that it had been a woman who was spying on her husband, who wanted to see what the Cherokee elders were doing in their council meetings. She would often nag at her husband, this Cherokee man, often and frequently, only to really not get that much of a response. Until finally, one night, she stumbles upon one of these meetings. And because this is seen by the Cherokee elders, they place a curse on this Cherokee woman. Now, from here, it is said that this is what the wampus cat is. It was a Cherokee woman who had been cursed to live the life of a half cougar, half woman, and doomed to roam the mountains forever and ever. Now, if you ask the colonists and the fur traders of this area, they will often tell you that they believed it to be a witch. You see, this witch, they say, would transform between a human to a mountain lion, often and frequently, and prey on livestock, other humans, and it would go after and get blood. However, that is the tale of the wampus cat, which honestly sounds like an old wives' tale or something spoken by the Cherokee to scare their children. But there might actually be some truth to this story. As I was saying, the Moats family have lived in this area for 6 generations, starting back when they immigrated here from France. And from a friend of mine, Garrett Moats, he has told me several stories that will leave you chilling to the bone. And in fact, as I have told this story of the wampus cat, an old Appalachian tale, if you will, let me tell you something that a friend of his, or I should say a family member, saw one night while out in the Red Hills area.
There was this dude named Vernon Liner that lived out here, and he was a very respected person in this area, and a lot of people knew him. A lot of people know the Liner family, but he was actually driving, it was an old C10 Chevy truck that he had, and he was on his way to work one morning, so it was broad daylight, and he said he had come over the there's multiple hills as you go into the Red Hills. You just have to kind of like drive through there and see what I'm talking about. But he was actually coming over the second big hill, and there's a little pull off up there on the left and right side. And as he topped that hill, when you go over the backside, it takes a real sharp right curve and then a real sharp left curve. And he went around that last left curve, and he said that he seen, it looked like a black mountain lion, but it was on its hind legs walking perfectly, like a bear would walk. But it had a really long, skinny tail like a monkey. And he said it just slowly walked across the road and then back into the woods. And that freaked him out pretty bad. And he obviously went on a couple-week tangent telling people that, you know, what he saw, and they all thought he was full of crap. But he swears up and down, until the day he died, he swore up and down that it was a it was a black, like mountain lion, panther, whatever, walking on its hind legs and had a real skinny tail. And it wasn't like a long tail. It was literally like a monkey's tail. He said it, you know, went down and curled up. But it wasn't long enough to be like an actual cat's tail. It was just a really strange something, and he wasn't too sure, you know, obviously what it was. And again, up until the day he died, he swore up and down, and his story never changed. He pinpoints exactly where it was at, what it looked like, and again, you know, all these years, that story never changed. And it had freaked him out so bad that he had actually kind of stopped going through the ridge to get into Calhoun. He'd started taking Bowater Road.
Yes, someone saw a creature. Something that looked like a cougar that was standing on its hind legs. And something that also looked to have a monkey's tail. Now, the man who saw this mysterious creature, to the very day he died, he swore up and down he saw what he saw, and he stuck to it. Despite the ridicule, all the different stories that were said of him, he saw what he saw. And from what I've understood, this man was very well respected in the community. If that tells you anything, he was a credible source. That just makes you wonder what is roaming the Red Hills. Now, some of you all might say that it's just a story. Maybe he saw something that he couldn't quite explain, and maybe it was explainable. But here out in the Red Hills area, just in front of me, there are hunters that go out in this area often, but many of them do not go back to this area. A lot of families say that once they go into this 4-mile stretch of road, they often describe it as being empty. Like nothing is there. It's quiet. It's like it's like almost as if wildlife knows not to go in this area. And this also goes to a few coon dogs and a few other hunters that Garrett Moats, a friend of mine, knows personally. You see, Garrett Moats' father had a coon dog and was hunting out in this area some time ago. And now this coon dog that he had was not afraid of anything. And if you have ever gone hunting with coon hounds, you will know that these dogs, they will go after stuff. There is nothing that will really ever stop them, unless it's something much larger than them. But Garrett Moats' father, he sends out this coon hound out into the woods, and something happens.
People that I personally know was my own dad. He used to go coon hunting back in there a lot, regularly. And it was my dad, my grandpa, my dad's uncle, so my great uncle, his son, and a couple of dad's and his cousin's friends. And they had all their dogs out there coon hunting that night. And Dad said that he could hear his dog baying, but it was a strange bay. And he said his dog had never bayed like that before. And about that time, he could hear the dog running back. And the dog ran right past Dad and everybody and personally jumped in the back of the truck by himself And anytime they would try to drag him out, he would nip at them. He would not get out of the truck. They couldn't get him out of the truck. And Dad had used this dog for years to hunt with, and he thought that was kind of bizarre because nothing's ever, intimidated that dog. But he said nobody could get that dog out of the truck. It wasn't happening, so they just loaded their dogs back up and came home.
And in another instance as well, a friend of Garrett's had a coon dog and went hunting up to the Red Hills area. Now, he sent his dog out. Nothing really came of it until he found his dog. His dog had its arm clear cut. It's as if something had gotten a hold of its arm, or I should say its leg, and ripped it off. It was a clean cut, as stated by the friend of his, and sadly he had to put the dog down.
Come from a friend of mine in high school that lives in the area, and I'm not going to say names, but he actually coon hunts a lot back in there too. And he said there was one time he took his dog back there, and it was him and 3 other guys that I know. And his dog was the only one that they were hunting that night because it was a dog they were trying to get trained. And they'd walk back into the ridge, and I could actually show you where he parked and walked into the woods. And he said they were about half a mile in, and he was looking on his tracker, and his dog was coming back very fast, at a full sprint. But the dog wasn't saying anything, wasn't baying, wasn't barking, wasn't anything. And then whenever it got a little closer, he could faintly hear the dog baying. And again, like Dad's situation, it was more of a cry than a bay. So kind of like the dog was hurt or something was wrong. And the dog had stopped moving. So he went to where his dog was at, and his dog had actually lost its leg somehow. And he don't know if it had stepped in a trap that somebody had back there or what happened, but he said it was like a clean break. Like it wasn't, like he got his leg caught in something and ripped his leg off to get out. Like it literally was like somebody had got a hatchet and just smacked the dog's leg off, and it was a clean cut through. And he ended up having to put his dog down because of obvious reasons.
It's as if there is a very dark energy about the Red Hills. Now, in my channel previously, I'm pretty sure you all saw this. We had another instance of an area being like this, and that was the Warren House on Vista Drive in Cleveland, Tennessee. It's as if there is something going on with the land. Out here, it's very quiet, as I was saying. It's lifeless. The only thing that seems to grow out here are the leaves and the trees, the plants, but no wildlife. It's just an empty void. And one more story I'd like to add about this area that is not so much related to the Wampus cat, but just shows the effects on what a land like this will do to a person. You see, Garrett's great-great-grandfather came out to this area a long time ago. He was chopping wood. He was bringing it from Bowater Road, and he saw this mysterious vagabond.
My grandpa's dad, so my great-grandpa, used to have a farm in Pinhook, which is on the back side of the Red Hills, more towards the Polk County side versus the McMinn side. And he used to haul logs off the farm to Bowater years ago. And there was a time that he was actually coming through the ridge, and he has just started to get into the Red Hills. And mind you, I didn't personally know my great-grandpa, obviously, because he, passed away before my time. But even my own grandpa and my dad was like, he, was not the type to fib about anything. He didn't believe in anything. Didn't believe in ghosts, didn't believe in none of that stuff. Just very, I guess, rough guy, you could say. But he was hauling some logs to Bowater, and he was coming up the first hill into the Red Hills, and he said this dude come out of the woods and asked for a ride. And he, was like, if you can find space somewhere on the wagon, yeah, you can hop on. So this dude hopped on, and you know, Grandpa tried to talk to him, and he didn't really have much to say. Didn't say his name, didn't say where he was from, what he was doing, or anything like that. He just casual conversation, like, you know, doing fine, how are you doing type situation. And as soon as Grandpa got towards the back end of the Red Hills around Walden Branch, the dude never said a word, never said thanks, never nothing, just hopped off the wagon and sprinted, like ran back into the woods. And no one's ever seen this guy again. My grandpa, my great-grandpa, you know, we've been out here for generations, and it was nobody that anyone knew. And he tried to explain to, like, neighbors and stuff what he looked like, and nobody recognized this guy. So, yeah, he got to Walden Branch, and the dude just hopped out and just took off running into the woods and just disappeared.
To this day, no one knows what happened to that man. No one knows who he was. It's as if he was there 1 minute and gone the next. So anyway, you guys, this cemetery is definitely interesting. A few of these headstones are actually out in the woods, and they're overgrown, which again gives you an idea on how old some of these graves are. But I'm going to call it another vlog for another day. Remember, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Always means a lot. Goes to show that y'all care and that y'all want to see more awesome videos. So without further ado, you guys, this vlog is over.